Well, in this lesson, we're going to be reviewing for today other operating systems. The most famous ones out there is your little penguin here with Linux and Mac. As for Linux, this guy, as I said, I lost count. I'm pretty sure it's over 100 for sure, different flavors of Linux. Over the last 10 years, the popularity of these OSs have increased. We have to be obviously, unfortunately now, aware and fully at least vested in what is the typical commands or things that we can do in here. Because of Linux and Mac OS systems, Linux itself is usually more often used as a proprietary system that's since it is an open source, you can actually tweak it for whatever you want. The majority of the systems that have these in there would be your access points, for instance, your switches, routers, firewalls. All of them are Linux based, believe it or not. Their best thing is to obviously serve these clients with security, and it's really extremely locked down compared to obviously your Windows service. By the end of the session, our ultimate goal is to be able to explain the purpose and the context of knowing how to navigate these OSs, including obviously and not limited to the Mac OS, Linux, or other mobile operating systems. Compare and contrast the features and functionalities of the Mac OS and the Linux OS. Overall, the growth in popularity within Linux and OS has obviously increased due to the fact of security. This is one of the main concepts that's going on. So if you're depending on even going further, especially into the security realm of IT, you best bet that you're going to have to learn Linux. One of the major things or best practices, obviously, like anything, is have scheduled backups. Do schedule disk maintenance if necessary onto these systems. Update the actual apps inside these systems and or the patches that are made to have driver and firmware updates, antivirus or anti-malware updates are a must, just like any other operating system. Just because they're locked down doesn't mean that there's not anybody that's not bored trying to hack into these systems. There is some tools, just like in Windows, that exist within these systems, which include, for instance, backups or time machine inside Apple. You have restores or snapshots, if we call that word. Now it's called snapshot here. Image recovery, disk maintenance utilities, your shell terminal. You have your screen sharings, your force quit. Features within the Mac OS or Linux systems may vary. Some features include your multiple desktops or mission control. Same thing, different name. Keychain, you have your spotlight, you have your iCloud, your gestures. As I said, multiple gestures in the i products is available, even the Macs. Finder, remote disk, dock, boot camp, are just to name a few. IT professionals must be aware of the basic command, the most minimum commands to be able to obviously do this. We have to be adaptable and have a growth mindset, specifically in Linux. As I said the other day, apt-get is the same as Pac-Man depending on which family you're in. There is other families which have a different command, but unfortunately, Pac-Man or package manager is the same as apt-get or application get. It's the same thing, no difference. And we also learned that grub and Zelo are the same thing, but it depending on which one you're using. If it's the old one, if I remember correctly, is Zelo, and the latest ones, the majority of them are using grub for the partitioning. Those are commands that you will learn in here are the ones that we're going to be going into. Other ones are more for advanced and you won't need. Overall, the market share, as we see, Windows eats the cake, be that it's Windows 7, because people are just refusing to upgrade from there. Windows XP is still out there, So is Windows Vista, believe it or not. But if you'll notice, Windows 10 does eat up with Windows 7 the majority. The funny thing is, obviously, 8.1 is still out there. I said 7 has more, yes, because of the fact that still all of these enterprises haven't migrated all those specific specific applications to run on Windows 10, or their domain is still running on a Windows 7.
I find it so impressive when I look at the chart still.
It's very impressive on how they've actually cornered the market. The only guy that's right below them is the Mac OS X. Now, do not let these numbers skew you because of the fact that maybe it says 2%, talking about really market share of computers or PCs. Linux, as I stated a moment ago, is being used on firewalls. It's being used in these big Fortune 500s, on AS 400s, and all these different things that are out there. So don't think that this is the pie that we're looking. We're looking at market share when it comes to PCs. In here, at no point is it mentioning anything else except for the platform for PCs. And as I said, PCs came out in the 80s, I think, or 70s. 80s really when they got famous inside a house. Personal computer means PC. A computer is a computer. Does that make sense? Just like a computer can be a server, a PC is a personal computer, means that it is for a person.
Why is Windows 8.1 mentioned twice on the chart?
That is a good question. Most likely, I am willing to bet that the bottom one is really 8 and not 8.1. That must be a mistake on here. As a matter of fact, yes, there it is. 083, in other words, the bottom one is Windows point 0.8, and then 8.1 would be the 4.56. You see it on the up here on the chart?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Not a problem. All right. Next here we have, as for the growth, as I said, these things have been growing and eating up the market share. There were much less than that. To the fact that when I started off in IT and I saw Linux, I started learning Linux. At one point, everybody said, don't waste your time. Windows just came out with Windows 3.1.1. It's beautiful. Everybody loves it. Nobody's going to be messing with this. You don't need it. 20 something years later, here we are. It still stands.
Stronger than ever, too.
Stronger than ever. Everybody hated it because of the fact that it's locked down. Everybody loves it because of the fact that it's locked down. IT people, really, if you are lazy, you will not like this system. A lot of the flavors of it is the black screen. It's a terminal. You can go and install other aftermarket packages that give you a file or a desktop file manager or a desktop features, but in ends, it is a completely locked down. It's backwards. Instead of being completely open, although it is an open source, which is funny, it is the security itself is completely locked down. While Windows, there's a lot of loopholes that you can actually that are open in it from factory. Questions, doubts.
No.
All right. So, as I said, this is just the families. This is not even touching what comes under the hierarchy of these trees. If you're that bored, you can go and look for it. But these are the main families that are out there, the majority of them. There is other ones out there that I'm aware of, but these are the main ones. You have Ubuntu, Fedora, Debian, Red Hat, which is very, very famous in enterprise. That one usually is not free. Not all Linux OSs is free, although it should be, but there is ones that you need to pay for. Mint, Knoppix, Elementary OS, SUSE, Arc or Arch Linux, Manjaro, and CentOS. Questions? Doubts? And every single one is different. So in the Mac OS, though, that one they decided to name everything out of or after some feline character. That's the only way that I can remember what is what. So if they give you some weird name and it's not a feline character, you best bet then it's not an OS of Mac. I wish they would put it in alphabetical order as our friend in Chrome has done, but unfortunately they didn't do that. And they got bored. After the fact that they ran out of feline characters at 1010, they decided to just proceed and say, you know what? Why don't we go with national parks? And born was Yosemite, El Capitan, Sierra, High Sierra, and Mojave, which are locations in the world. Questions, doubts. As you can see, people in the enterprise world love to cry because if you can see here, there's a much more of just a 10 point something OS, let alone the previous OSs from this. We're talking about only the 10 point something OS of Mac, and there is 14 of them in only 18 years. That's like saying Windows 1, Windows 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It was only Windows XP, right? Windows 7. It wasn't 14 of them that I'm aware of from Windows 2000 on to now. Because you can't count Windows NT, which, if I remember, came out on 98. Any questions, doubts? Actually, obviously, the more and the later the greater, the more features it has, and the more capabilities of it being able to use the latest and greatest equipment. So if you get a very old one, I'm pretty sure if you get an old OX that I'm aware of, it usually does not allow you to run unless if and only if that computer is unable to upgrade anymore. Probably has happened to you on your iPhones or your actually iPads where you get to a certain iOS and then all of a sudden it stops upgrading. Although your friend that's down the street that just bought the latest and greatest iPhone 13 or 19, God only knows what numbers out there right now, just making a joke, but you get my point. That person will get the latest and greatest iOS, but you're not going to get it because it is able to determine that that processor and or whatever you have is antiquated and it won't be able to handle it. As for the other operating systems, when we want to maintain them, we have the capability of hopefully scheduling our backups, turning on the time machine, scheduling disk maintenance if necessary, updates in app stores, patch management. We should be updating our drivers, maybe sometimes the actual firmwares, which lately has become very easily dangerous, but very easily to do compared to back in the days, antivirus or anti malware updates. As for the actual Linux, when you're backing it up, you can schedule it by using the command rsync utility from the CLI or the shell. Can operate locally or remotely while encrypting the transfer itself. As with any CLI, you can create batch files to be able to scale to be able to do that. And in here, they're called tars. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen .tars before, maybe inside Windows, which are similar to zip files. And you have your CPOs. Questions? As for their backup, again, it is both of them are a I always forget. Unix was before Linux, or Linux is the one that created Unix. I always forget that.
Unix is first,
Okay, so
and
Mac
built
Mac was
upon.
created based off of Unix then, because if that's correct,
Yeah.
and then that's why rsync is still here because all three of them use rsync, and it's called Time Machine. It has a GUI application for you, which is much easier to use than anything else. By default, that I'm aware of, it is on. That I'm aware of in the new Mac OS, Time Machine is on by default. Obviously, you can actually set it up to automatically perform hourly, daily, weekly backups depending on you want. Right. As for your schedule maintenance, as we learned, although it may work on other ones, but the common actual partitions that we should be utilizing if we really are trying to go towards these people is the X3 or the X4 partitioning for the, or sorry, fat formatting. Uh, and these usually do not require any type of defragmentation, those type of formatting. This has the capable of checking itself, which is the almost a bad word in German, to say the least. And inside your actual Mac OS, which is the Apple file system, APFS, it does not require any type of defragmentation either, but you can check actually or verify the disk with the disk utility verification to help you. All of these file systems, all of the flavors within the OS itself, because since it is the file system, the X3, the X4, are on the fly defragmentation. God only knows why they don't want to do it. Microsoft, maybe they can't figure it out. I don't know. Questions?
No.
Why doesn't the, oh, sorry.
No, no,
Why
go ahead.
doesn't the, why doesn't the, what's it called? The Apple filing system doesn't require defragmentation.
It's on the same file system. It's on an X. It's really the same thing as the X4 or X3. It's almost the same thing. It's a Unix
Yeah.
based partitioning. Remember, it's all Unix based. All Unix and Linux and Mac do not require defragmentation, which really ticks off everybody who uses Windows because they just can't figure out, why do I have to go and schedule this? Why doesn't it just do it on the fly?
Okay.
Linux, that's another reason why they're so infamous, is it is so locked down, and it itself tries to protect itself, is one of the main reasons why it's still here. It's so robust and strong that to take it down is pretty difficult. If it goes down, something's really hit the fan. In here, these systems overall have the ability to update themselves. Obviously, the Mac OS has the Apple Store itself, which is usually the only way, unless if you somehow jailbreak these things, that you can get anything in there. If you want it, you must go to the Apple Store. If you want somebody to be using this in an Apple product, then you must post it in an Apple Store. It's not like uh, the Unix. Does anybody know why it's not what you can do in Unix? Obviously, in here sudo means super user do once. You can come into a shell and just go in as a super user, just exactly like you can go into a PowerShell as an administrator. At that point, all commands are going to be run as a super user. Your prompt changes from that weird signal to a hashtag, letting you know just like in a Cisco router or in a Cisco switch. And I even think in firewalls, if you're in that black screen, it lets you know that you're in as an administrator at that point because it has that prompt with a hashtag. In these, obviously, you have apt-get, which allows you to get an update. You also have the command, uh, as I said before, pacman, depending on the flavor of Linux that you have. But in the actual Ubuntu and Fedora, there is some GUI tools that allow you to do this also. But my friends, if you really want to learn Linux, go into the terminal, mess with apt-get, and or depending on which one. I think if you did download, uh, which one is the one that I asked you guys to download? Somebody
Kali
remember?
Linux.
Thank you. If you downloaded Kali Linux, it should be apt-get is a command. Now, apt-get, what's awesome about it is since it's so locked down, you have the choice and the power. As I said, this is open source. So if you decide that you want to go to Pepe's download location to go get yourself and install something that was made by Pepe for there, and he posted it in the internet, boom, apt-get with the command of the location that you're trying to get it and the name of it. Simple as that. I'm not going to get into details, but if you read the commands of apt-get, it tells you exactly how to do it. If you want to go get legitimate sources, it'll also tell you how to do it. You can actually put that also in locations for yourself. So you created something yourself and you can post it out in the internet into these actual repositories. And you could just create, or if something happened, your virtual machine went down, you want to go and recreate everything. As long as you had those saved files up there, boom, boom, done. Questions?
I
Doubts?
got some good questions here on chat about su and sudo. And
Two.
Fadil was mentioning something very good. Su means switching
user.
user. And by
Mm,
default, if you do SU, it's for root. Now, I
correct.
say switching user, but that's not what it really is. It's basically super user. So they're
That
kind of
I'm
hard to
aware of,
explain.
SU is super user. If you want to log in with another ID, is a different command. Sudo is super user do once.
Correct. But you could switch users with su, believe it or
Correct.
not. But I
If
don't
you put
recommend it.
su, if you put su and then put the ID, you will be logging in with that ID.
So that's where the confusion comes there. Super user do once means you do it once. So please be aware that I got that question here on chat too.
Any other questions down? No questions, no doubts. Everybody's all right. All right. Continue. All right. For patch management itself, Linux uses the same tool management as Windows System Center configuration, but obviously there is third-party software such as Spacewalk and many other ones out there available for patch management itself. There is that I'm aware of the capabilities of you to self-patch. In other words, if I go to Pac-Man and if I recall correctly, -S, so I'm going as a super user. Oh, I think it was YY. I don't remember the flag, but there is a flag and it will go and look and update everything. He'll look for all patches and update himself and get himself up to date. As for the drivers or firmware maintenance itself, You have the software update center itself to be able to do it. You do got personal package or PPAs that you can actually download. And my friends, that is the ice cream truck. We'll finish this here, pause, and we'll continue with this slide in 5 minutes.
Diego, are you muted?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
So,
Good.
perfect. So welcome back, Cotter. Welcome back. Just started recording. As we stated earlier, super user and or switch user, the default is root. Uh, if you don't put a user, then obviously it's going to go with root. Root is dangerous. Root means you are root. You are admin. That's who root is in the Unix world. That is always the administrator, unless if you want to create your own admin account.
I would say
Inside
it's
the
more dangerous
root,
than Windows
oh yeah,
because when you're administrator, it's a different level of administration. You tell it to delete itself,
it'll
it
delete
will.
itself. It won't even ask you. It's not going to confirm, making care less. You want it, you got it. Hence why you got to be. That's why they put the command as su or sudo. Sudo is the one that a lot of people like to do because of the fact that if by mistake they forgot to get out of where they were supposed to get, they are in trouble. Hence why also the little character changes into a hashtag to make sure. As for the PPAs here, the actual personal package archives, those repositories contains all drivers that can be easily added to your actual computers. It's amazing when you get used to doing these things and how to getting and adding them to there, how easy it is compared to how annoying it is at first. To say the least, because just to get used to it is not an easy task. Obviously, within the Apple Store itself or Apple support site, you can get the capabilities of updating your drivers and or firmware. As for Apple, that is extremely locked down. Most likely, if you're not able to do it, you can't go into some of these third-party sites to be able to actually fix the issue. Questions and doubts.
What was the RPM package again?
The RPM package is the ones from the Red Hat. Red Hat is the family with the little red hat of Linux. They use RPM packages instead of I take it in the PPAs for the Ubuntu.
I believe you only need to know those two,
Mhm.
RPM and Yum
Yum is
for
another one, yeah.
Ubuntu. But we get to that though.
There's apt-get, there's Yum, but they're basically almost the same. And there is Pac-Man.
Luckily, we don't need to know Pac-Man right now. That's the
It's
future.
all basically the same thing, different name. Okay. Questions, doubts. Pac-Man, you're most likely not going to run into. That is a very locked down version, or Arch Linux. Black Linux usually uses that one too. I think, yeah, because it's Black Arch Linux. Hello. In reference to that language, don't worry too much. Just worry about the ones that we're going to teach you here for A plus, because those are the basic commands that we're going to be reviewing soon that you will need to know for the test. Overall, all Linux OSs and Mac OSs versions have an anti-malware created for it. Obviously, for the longest time, people weren't bothering with it because we saw the little pie chart. We see that Windows is the majority of PCs that are out there. So the most damage that I can do out there would be towards a Windows environment compared to me trying to go and then just hit about 0.36 of the environment. It's less than a 1% of the personal computers contain it. You see what I'm saying? If I'm a hacker or if I really want to give you anti-malware, I would prefer trying to hack and or hurt the majority of that pie. Obviously, some people have become bored and now they're writing viruses towards the Mac users.
If there's
Hence,
money, there's a way.
hence, that's why now Mac has their little anti-malware stuff. But prior to that, there was plenty of people who had the audacity and or luxury of not even purchasing an anti-malware software. They didn't need it. Any questions, doubts? All right. So Mac OS versus Linux OS. You have backup versus time machine. I don't know why they put that because it's, I believe, the other way around. Restore versus snapshot, image recovery, disk maintenance, shell versus terminal, screen sharing, and force quit. Well, so for your backup tools themselves, obviously, if it's a TAR or CPO, it all depends if it is a construct of full or a partial backup. As for your actual the flags at the end is the minus minus with the append. It appends to the actual archive. If it is the add or one more existing, you have the catenate, catenate. You have the create to create a brand new one. You have the delete, which deletes your diff, which does compares the difference between one file and the other one. Extract does exactly that. It will extract everything in the contents of that tar file. Help, which obviously shows you all the commands within tar, and then you have list to list all the archives, and lastly, you have update. Obviously, either tar or CPO is what your command is, right? You start off with tar, and if you type the word help, it should help you. And these are the flags. Just like, well, no, can't really say that. Not even into it. Questions or doubts? Just like you use ping, in other words, when you use trace route, that's the command. Tar, that's the command. CPO. All right. Next, as for your actual time machine inside your Mac OS, you could actually select the disks. You could turn it on, turn it off. Obviously, this usually does hourly backups. Unless if you change the actual options on this that I'm aware of, the default is, I believe, hourly backups of differences. If I recall. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. It's usually a differential backup. Hence the reason time machine. I don't think it's a full backup.
It's
I was
pretty
just
good.
about to ask that.
Huh? Hey, look, you got, as a matter of fact, look, it's reading it there. Let me read it. Hourly backups for the past 24 hours. So, in anything that happened in the last 24 hours, daily backups of the last month, and then weekly backups for all the previous months. And then all the old backups are deleted when your disk becomes full. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. Questions, doubts? Righty then. Restore and or snapshot. On the left, here's Linux itself. Snapshot provides obviously a volume image of the device at a particular instant without causing service interruption. You can actually restore it. If you guys remember, inside our little virtual machines, we took snapshots or restore points. Remember that in Windows? To restore a snapshot, we must run the command lv convert. The minus S argument obviously is the one to create a snapshot for lv create, not convert. LV convert versus LV create. All right, restoring files and perform using the actual time machine. You obviously just go into the little icon of time machine, select the actual, enter the time machine itself, and go look for where exactly you want to go. You just got to go exactly where you believe it was. I deleted it now. I just got to go back in time looking at the location of where that file should have been. Locate it, click restore, and ping, he is back. Questions?
What does it mean when it says the S argument?
Minus S, that's an argument or a flag.
Oh,
So you put LV create space minus S. It's a flag or an argument.
oh, okay, okay.
Just like ping minus A or, uh, sorry, I keep on talking Linux. That's where now I remember where my minus keeps on coming from. It's from Linux. Just like there's ping with the /A or NS lookup, and then you could do a flag. In here, the argument or the flag is minus S. Remember,
Okay.
guys, all these things that we're learning, please, after class and or during your asynchronous time, play with the actual machine. Create yourself a snapshot inside that CLI of Linux. See what it does. See if you can get the syntax down pat. As for
Don't
Mac,
take practice.
as for the Mac OS, I could have sworn there was a fake one out there. Isn't there a fake
There
one?
is Bash. You can install Bash on macOS. Bash is the specific
No, no, no,
language.
no, no. I'm sorry. As for Mac OS to play with it, I believe there might be an online fake Mac OS to play with. I'm not sure if it was Linux the only one that has it. I know Linux for sure has like a web base, just like we did with the routers, that there was a fake router that you can get into the menus and all that stuff. For Cisco has one, or Linksys, whoever their name is. I think Mac may have one. I'm not sure because it is a pain in the butt if you don't have a Mac to create a virtual machine of a Mac OS.
I agree. I'm gonna ask Kelly and I'll look it up too. I bet Kelly
Yeah,
knows.
there's got to be someone somewhere that got bored. Either there's an OVA file out there that you could probably find, or there's got to be a website that you could probably play around with. Hopefully, right? Questions or doubts on this window? All right. Image recovery itself. Both systems can recover an image using the same techniques. Obviously, just like from Windows, you can recover from a given image that you want. In this Linux, with war sync is the actual utility to be able to restore from the actual snapshot itself. Mac OS can do it through the disk utility that comes with a backup on the system itself, which will recover from the image. Time Machine snapshot, or here restore, is the same as we said yesterday. What in Windows?
System image restore or system restore.
System restore. Yeah, a restore point. When you're restoring from a restore point, is the same as restoring from a snapshot. Now, here, this next slide that, or the one that we just saw, this is from an image. Remember the image, the OVA, similar to saying like an OVA file inside your virtual machines? This will be a full image, entire snapshot. See? Whole thing. All right. So here's your actual little commands, your disk utilities within here. You have rsync, both for backup and restoring specific files. You have time machine. You have your disk utilities to be able to go, or the GUI ones to be able to do that. You have tar, which is the command. You have LV, create, which creates your actual snapshot. Please, oh please, play with them. Break your virtual machine. Your shell terminal itself, or the CLI for Unix, is usually a terminal session that you can open up in here, you'll see that you can run commands like ls that allow you to bash just like in Linux. A lot, or the that I'm aware of, the majority of the commands that is in the global Linux language will be here. In other words, if every single Linux uses that word, it will be in the Mac OS. This
Agreed.
is not to be confused with apt-get or pacman or yum, which is not. They're all the same command in three different flavors of Linux. Now, the word ping is the command ls is, the command cd is, hopefully we remember cd from Windows. CD is the same. Can somebody tell me the command cd, what does it do?
Change directory.
Thank you. The variance here is in your friend here, Apple, Unix, and or Linux. They use forward slash versus backslash. There is no drive volume in Linux. There's no C, D, E, F, G. Which confuses the heck out of everybody that's coming out of Windows.
Confused me for a long time until I realized it's actually straightforward.
Yeah, it can care less where it is. It's just telling you everything that it can read. It's amazing how simple yet how confusing it is. Questions, doubts? That is your terminal. As for your screen sharing, obviously Linux allows this feature as a root user. You will be able to do this. You do have to obviously set permissions to allow it by typing the chmod, which is you mean you want to change or modify, right? Now you're putting the, wait a minute, the U plus, yeah, U plus S, and then you go into the actual user bin screen folder, which you're just giving it the users, you're letting them to the plus with the S means that. Change access permission of screen mode by typing chmod 755. And again, this specific bucket. As I said, this is one of the reasons why they love Linux. This thing is completely locked down. It is very hard to get into these things because even if you know the freaking password, you can't get in. Remotely, it's not letting you. There's no port or service open. I hope that rings down and what the problem is in Windows. Windows has plenty of services on and plenty of ports saying, hey, what you got to say? Oh, you need my information? Yeah. I'm thinking, here you go. Here's my computer name. Here's everything I got in here. Here's the latest version I have. The patches. Oh, you need patches? Here. These are all the patches and all. You can do a vulnerability. Oh, you want a vulnerability scan? Have it, buddy. I don't know who you are. You can check whatever you want. Linux ain't playing that game. You're gonna have to give it the capabilities of doing things. RDP is usually open. Nowadays, I do agree. Yes, Windows 10, some features are being locked down, but the usual Windows back in the days, a lot of it was just completely open. Specifically, if you're on FAT, can anybody tell me what's wrong if you're on a FAT?
Remember the new format for Microsoft? There was a reason why.
On the old FAT? Forget about FAT 64 because that's obviously beyond
Well,
the new technology. I'll give you that much of a clue.
Something about exploits.
Okay, but
And the
what does the new file system do? What does the new technology file system give me?
More security.
Exactly. It has encryption, has security for files. FAT does not have security for files. The old FAT 32, the old FAT 16, and the original FAT has no file or folder security. Questions, doubts here? In reference to the actual Mac OS, that does have a virtual network computing, and it has able to share your screen with others within the actual Mac OS. There is a GUI app that allows you to do that. Questions, doubts? Similar to remote desktop, in other words. All right, force quit itself inside your actual Linux. You have to go to your shell command itself and go and kill, as your friend Josh loves, and you can kill the task. It's not task kill here. Be very careful because of the fact that kill in other languages will kill files. In Linux, it will kill according to the PID if you put the PID with the number. In other words, kill the number and it kills that specific ID. As for the Mac OS, if it's unresponsive, you could choose quit from your Apple menu, or you can press command button, option, and escape, like control, alt, and delete. In this case, is command, option, and escape. And it should bring up this little window, and you can force quit an app. As for Mac OS features, it does have the multiple desktops or mission controls that I'm aware of. Windows 10 for sure. I don't remember if Windows 8.1 has that feature, but you do have capability of having multiple desktops now in Windows. Prior to that, Mac OS was the only one that was actually being able to hang their hat on that using the same feature as your workspace instead of your mission control or multiple desktop. Workspace is the switcher in Linux. Same thing. Linux had multiple desktops or workspaces that you could work on.
I think it was Linux that first introduced it, and then everyone
Agreed.
copied
Yes,
it.
correct. Linux. If anybody had it when it comes to Mac, Linux, or Unix, I would put my hat on between Unix and Linux had it first before Mac had it. Specifically, these type of things when it comes to the greatest and latest features. Because since it is based off of that, they usually get it from there and they just go, okay, well, we'll add that to our operating system. Thank you for the update. As for your keychain, that's a password management system. It's just the same or similar to the credential manager. Spotlight, which actually searches for documents, images, apps, and everything else. Not to be confused with, I believe Windows uses the Spotlight for what?
Put random
Birdie.
wallpapers up.
Yeah. So just be careful whenever you read the word Spotlight and you wind up having both choices. Look at what operation they're talking about. I doubt they're gonna go and throw this little thing at you, but God only knows. People are bored. They might actually throw that stupid question and tell you on the Mac OS or on the thing on the Windows OS, what is a Spotlight? Make sure you know that obviously Spotlight here in Mac means that you're going to be searching for stuff, while in the Windows, that's just that log on screen where you can see different places. Gestures, that's obviously the multi-touch screen, and even the mouse allows you to do multi-touch screen gestures or multi-touch. Finder does that. He finds stuff, which I always find very cute. See, Spotlight is like a little search box, similar to that little box that you have with Cortana. Finder actually lets you browse through folders like File Folder or File Explorer or Windows Explorer. God only knows they gotta just change the name. That makes sense? Remote disk will allow you to go directly to the disk on another machine, hence the word remote disk. Dock is the set of icons that you have, not to be confused with the charms. I think it's charms, right? Dock is a dock, and the charms is the one that allows you to get into the admin things, if I remember correctly.
Kind of, I think so. Yeah, it's similar.
Doc is the
Basically,
doc,
your
and
version.
then and charms would be I think that's how it is. Charms is the ones that are the admin ones for Apple. Okay. All right. Here we are. Linux basic commands. Write them down. Take a picture. It'll last longer. CD means exactly that. You know. So chmod, change permissions or change modifications, if you want to remember. Chown is owner. Chown, change owner. Chmod is change modifications. This is the only reason I remember it. Remember, I'm just trying to tell you how I remember these things. God only knows. CP is my favorite. Copy. God only knows they're just too lazy to write the other two letters. LS will list all contents within a directory. Instead of dir, it's ls. mkdir will make a directory. MV will rename and move. Yes, I just said that. If you want to move a file, you could just do the same command as rename, which is MV. Because technically, if you move it to the exact same spot with a different name, you renamed it. RM, remove directory or D file. Sorry, remove file. Sorry, not directory. Make directory. Yeah,
Well, you got to be careful. It could.
it will remove a directory if you name the directory. That is true. So MV moves, RM deletes. PWD will display the working directory. Print working directory. It's the only reason I remember because of the fact that son of a motherless goat looks just like the one for password. So the only reason I remember that is I try to put something that hones down to me, and that to me is print working directory. Where am I? Another command that you may need is who am I? And who am I says how you're logged in. DD copies the blocks of data from one file to another to be used. DD copies blocks of data from one file to another used to copy data from devices itself to another device, usually. grep is basically the search for regular expressions. In other words, if I want to, which is amazing, you know how actually Windows now does that too. I think it wasn't able to do that. But let's say you're looking for a file, but you can't remember the file name for some stupid reason. But you can remember maybe a few sentences or two words that you put in there, two keywords that you put in there. You can grab the keywords that you're looking for, and it will show you the full list of every single file that either has that information or contains that information. That is grep. Apt-get does that. It downloads files from an actual repository. PS will display the list of current running processes. So kill will kill them. PS will give me the processes so that I can see them. Kill kills the process. PS tells me which ones, similar to task list. So task list is equal to PS to be able to see which processes. Shutdown is shutdown. And to start a visual file editor, could be VI, Vim. There is different types that you can go into, but I think the basic one, and I think the one that the majority of them have is VI. Similar to the command of edit in DOS. It'll open up a editor. Questions? All right. Well, so PWD was print working directory, not to be confused with password, which is password. That will give you the command to be able to change your password. So password and space whatever you want changes it. Su, which is a start a user as another user, as we stated, default will invoke root. If you do not state who you want, it will automatically go as that. Now, the same thing, sudo, you could do the same thing. You could actually put the actual user, but if you put sudo or switch user do once or super user do once, like us old folks like saying, it will go with root if you do not put the ID that you want to use. Obviously, if you do not have access to root or you don't have admin rights, it will ask you for root's password. Questions, doubts? All right. Yes. Now, for those that might have played with Novell servers, these things may be actually easy for you. But for other people who have no idea what in the world this is, your basic commands with flags on the back, add is plus, minus is to remove, equals is that you're assigning something to someone, S to set the user ID. If you're talking about who, U is user, G is group, O is others, A is all. So whenever you're looking at syntax and it tells you that you're talking about who, you or the letter U would be a short version of specifying that you're talking about a user. Whenever you're talking about permissions themselves, in other words, you're giving a user permissions, you could put RWX at the end of that syntax, which means that they got read, write, and execute. If you just put R as a flag, they will only be able to read. Questions? Doubts? All right. Quiz time. Which of the following application stores are compatible with the iOS? Android, Windows, App, Amazon.
App
App
Store.
Store.
Amazon store, somebody?
No, I said C.
App Store.
App Store.
Okay. Next one. In a Linux OS environment, which command will display your current directory to the user?
PWD.
Why not ls?
It lists the contents of the directory.
Thank you. Be very careful with those two commands. One will tell you exactly where you are versus the other one will tell you everything that's in here. Next one, what is the name of the area at the bottom of the macOS screen by default? A car of crucial, car mean? God only knows.
The D.
A bar, sorry, must be a bar. A bar of crucial icons appear.
D.
Which Linux command can be used to let you run a single command as another user?
B.
Everyone agree?
Yes, B.
Okay. Which Linux utility can be used to check and repair disks?
A.
All right. Let's see how we did. Ooh, scary. Let's find out. See what
Are you
happened.
sure it was Sue for one-time use?
Let's see. Which of the following, that one we got right. We said print working directory. We said doc. Ooh. Let's look at this one. So which Linux command is used to run a single command? We learned that super user do once, or switch user do once, is its word. And in its word says do once. Would that be the same as running a single command? Versus if I say Sue, we stated it will stay with a hashtag symbol, meaning that all commands at this point I will be running as my super user root. So I will be switching to the user root at that point. All commands will be as root. Make sense? Why it would be sudo versus sudo. All right. Good job, guys. So at this point, we should hopefully be able to explain the purpose of and context of knowing how to navigate these other OSs. Once again, we don't have to be masters of these domains, but we are required to be able to navigate to the system, specifically where we need to go. We need to be able also to compare and contrast the features within these different ones. As we stated, over the last 10 years, these operating systems have increased. Specifically, Linux itself has gained a lot of ground. Can somebody tell me why Linux also has gotten a lot? Besides what I gave you, there was one more guy who's really put this guy up into the sky.
Pac-Man?
Well, Pacman is the command for running packages. I'm looking for an OS that is based off of Linux and has become very, very popular. Popular.
Ubuntu.
Ubuntu is a Linux operating system. I'll give you a bigger clue.
Unix?
I'll give you a larger clue.
Okay.
It's in your hands on the majority of people's hands nowadays, and it's not an iPhone.
Android.
Android.
Android. Thank you. That is a Unix or Linux, sorry, based operating system, which contains now the Chrome OS. Therefore, Linux is coming back for many reasons, not only because of the fact that it is so secure for the routers, for the switches. You're not going to get away from those firewalls and all these robust systems that are for security purposes. Now it's in the palm of your hand. People are writing programs for this Chrome OS, which is a Linux based operating system. Any questions or doubts?
Yes, I have a question.
Mhm.
You had shown us that chart about the frequency of the different OSs. So I guess that's only for that chart is only for PCs, right? That doesn't include mobile devices.
That is correct. Mhm. Those are mainly, we're only talking about PC operating systems, is mainly what we were talking about here. Be a laptop or a desktop. Any other
So
questions?
with that is so a laptop would count as both a mobile device and a PC.
See, you're tricking yourself at the same time. See, a laptop is a mobile device
Yeah,
because it is mobile, but it is a PC because
yeah,
it functions fully as a PC. A phone is a mobile device, but it's not a PC.
cool.
It doesn't have a full-blown operating system except for some of your Windows phones. I doubt it. There's Windows Mobile, but you get my point. There is obviously now the Windows Surface, which is a mobile device, and some of them you can buy it with the full-blown Windows 10. Hence, since now it has a full-blown operating system, at that point, that mobile device is considered a PC. See, a PC can be a desktop or a laptop. It's a personal computer. Desktop, a personal computer, sorry, can be a desktop, a tower, a server, right?
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We'll end this session here.